I never thought my life would hit rock bottom in my parents' backyard. But there I was, tied to a wooden pole, in front of our family, friends, neighbors, anyone who was hungry for a bit of gossip and cruelty. Barefoot, wrists burning, dignity shredded. And they were laughing. My dad stood a few feet away, sipping his bourbon like it was just another barbecue. He smirked and raised his glass as if I were some joke he'd told. "You're a useless child, Emma," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You bring nothing but embarrassment." Someone clapped. A few uncles chuckled. My cousin took a video. I just stood there, not moving, not crying, not giving them what they wanted. If I broke, if I let them see one tear, they'd win. I could feel my mother's glare. She sat near the patio heater, fanning herself like she was above all this, as if she wasn't the one who'd suggested they make an example of me. "You always thought you were special," my sister Lauren hissed under her breath as she walked by in her glittery dress. "You're nothing." I couldn't even answer. I was trying to keep my knees from buckling. They said I'd ruined the family name, that I was a waste, that I was too quiet, too strange, too soft. And just when I thought they'd finally crushed every last part of me, a sound broke through the chaos. A low, smooth engine. Heads turned. Forks paused midair. Phones dropped. A black Rolls-Royce pulled up right outside the iron gate, its presence alone silencing the garden like someone had flipped a switch. The car stopped. Doors unlocked. And out stepped him. Nathaniel Carter. The man who disappeared 6 months ago. Tall. Sharp. Wearing a navy blue custom suit like it was stitched onto his soul. Calm. Calculated. And terrifyingly quiet. He didn't look at anyone. He looked straight at me. And my heart almost gave out. He walked with purpose. Every step on the stone pathway slicing through the awkward silence like a blade. Everyone moved out of his way instinctively, like they knew they were in the presence of something different. He stopped right in front of me, eyes narrowing when he saw the rope. "Emma." His voice was quiet, controlled. "Who did this to you?" Gasps. Real ones. My dad blinked like he didn't understand English anymore. My mother stood up, so fast her chair screeched. Nathaniel didn't wait for an answer. He pulled a small knife from his jacket and sliced the rope off my wrists with surgical ease. I didn't even breathe. I couldn't. I just stared at him. He took my hand, so gently it made my throat tighten, and kissed the bruises. Then he turned around to the crowd. "This woman is my wife," he said, his voice like thunder wrapped in silk. "And I want to know who thought tying her up like an animal was acceptable." The entire backyard froze. My sister's wine glass shattered on the patio. My mom whispered, "Wife," like the word itself stung. My dad's lips parted, trying to speak, but nothing came out. And that's when Nathaniel said something that made every single person go dead silent. "This house? It's mine now, and I want every single one of you off this property within 15 minutes. You ever watch people go from smug to speechless in under 10 seconds? Because that's what happened next. My dad's jaw dropped, his hand still frozen midair like he forgot he was holding a drink. My mother stood there blinking like someone had just pulled the earth out from under her. And my sister? She stared at Nathaniel like she was seeing a ghost. And for her, maybe she was. I rubbed my sore wrists as Nathaniel turned slightly toward me and asked gently, "Did you tell them?" I shook my head. I hadn't said a word to them about it. About us. Not about what we'd built together. Not about who he really was, and definitely not about what I had done for them. Quietly, selflessly, while they mocked me. He turned back to the garden full of frozen faces and said it for me. "Emma didn't tell you because she's still more loyal to this family than any of you ever deserved. But since no one here has the decency to be honest, I'll do it for her." Silence. A different kind now. The kind that crawls under your skin and makes you squirm because deep down they all knew something was coming. And they weren't ready. "This house went into default 3 months ago," Nathaniel said. "Unpaid taxes. Mortgages stacked up. Creditors knocking on the door. And Emma, your useless child, she used her college savings, her emergency fund, even sold her old car, trying to keep it afloat. I felt 30 pairs of eyes swing back to me. The same ones that laughed when I showed up in hand-me-downs. The same ones that called me a charity case. Now looking at me like I was a stranger. Like they had missed something massive. When the bank finally gave a final notice, Nathaniel continued. Emma called me. She didn't ask for help. She asked if I could buy the house anonymously so you wouldn't lose your pride. My dad suddenly barked. You're lying. Nathaniel didn't even flinch. Am I? He said, calmly pulling a folded deed from his inner jacket pocket. He handed it to my father. Take a look. You signed it. I watched as my dad's hand trembled. He unfolded the paper and scanned it, and just like that, his face turned white. Because it was real. His signature was there.
Clear as day.
From the day he'd blindly signed over the property to a private investor to stop the foreclosure. That investor was Nathaniel. My mother stepped forward, frantic. You tricked us. No. I finally spoke. My voice cracked, but it came out strong. I saved you. And you tied me to a pole. That's when Nathaniel turned back to the group and said, You didn't raise a failure. You raised a woman. A woman who kept your lights on. A woman who gave up her future to protect your past. And today, you humiliated her.
He didn't yell.
He didn't threaten. He just let the truth sit there, sharp and undeniable. Then, calmly, he finished. You have 15 minutes to gather your things. After that, I'm changing the locks. And you know what? They actually listened. They didn't argue. They didn't scream. They didn't fight. Because they couldn't. I had finally found my voice, and it was louder than all of their cruelty combined. No shouting. No slamming of doors. Not even a last-ditch insult thrown over the shoulder. They just packed up. Quietly. I stood there, watching the same people who once barked orders at me now scrambling to gather their designer handbags and monogrammed coats like strangers being evicted from a place they never belonged. My mother, who once told me I was the reason she never got to live her dreams, couldn't even look me in the eye. My sister, who mocked my clothes, my silence, my mediocre little job, she tried to walk past me without speaking. But Nathaniel didn't let that happen. He stepped in front of her. Lauren, he said calmly, apologize. She blinked like the word was in a foreign language. Excuse me? He didn't raise his voice. Didn't move. Just said it again. You recorded her. You laughed while she stood there tied like a criminal. You humiliated your own sister in front of strangers. Now apologize. Her face flushed red. Her lip trembled, not from guilt, but from the rage of being checked by someone who outclassed her in every way. Still, she looked at me. Jaw clenched. I'm sorry, she muttered. I didn't say anything. I just nodded. And that stung her more than yelling ever could. When my dad walked past, he stopped for a second, then looked at Nathaniel. Whatever she told you. She didn't have to tell me anything, Nathaniel said. I watched. For years. While she held you all together and you didn't even notice. Dad opened his mouth, but Nathaniel cut him off. You know what the worst part is? She would have forgiven you. Even today. If you'd shown an ounce of remorse. My dad lowered his head like a man who finally realized the mirror he'd avoided all his life had just been shoved in front of him. And then he left. Just like that. No hug. No goodbye. I thought I'd feel empty. But what I felt was peace. When the last car drove off and the yard was finally quiet, it was just me and Nathaniel. He turned to me, brushing a loose strand of hair from my face. You okay? He asked. I nodded slowly. I think I am now. And then I laughed. It came out of nowhere.
Soft. Disbelieving.
Like a breath I'd been holding for years had finally escaped. He smiled, the way he used to back when everything was simple and nothing hurt. Come on, he said, lacing his fingers through mine. You've been saving everyone else for years. Let's talk about what you want now. I didn't know what to say. For once, no one was yelling. No one was judging. No one was cutting me down. Just me. And the man who saw me when no one else even looked. When the last car disappeared down the street, the stillness left behind was almost deafening. It wasn't the kind of silence that crushes you. It was something else. Something quieter.
Kinder.
Like the kind of silence that finally lets you breathe. For years, that house had echoed with judgment, fake laughter, and the constant need to prove myself to people who had already decided I wasn't enough. I used to walk those halls like a guest, an invisible shadow who did the dishes, paid the bills behind their backs, and got blamed for everything when things fell apart anyway. But that night, I stood in the foyer with Nathaniel's hand in mine, looking around like I'd never seen it before. Like it was mine for the first time. Because it was. Feels different, doesn't it? He asked gently, setting down his keys by the front door. I nodded, still not sure what part of me had survived the last 2 hours. I keep expecting someone to come in and tell me to go clean something, I whispered. He looked over at me, eyes soft. No one's going to do that ever again. I walked slowly through the living room, where earlier that day I'd been shoved, tied, and mocked like some kind of spectacle. There were still wine glasses on the side tables. Napkins scattered near the fireplace. Half-eaten cake plates abandoned like artifacts from a family that had pretended to love each other in public while tearing each other apart in private. I stood there, breathing it in, trying to untangle the truth from the years of noise. Nathaniel came up beside me. You're allowed to feel angry. I'm not, I said quietly. I'm tired. Tired of being angry. Tired of wondering why I wasn't enough for them. Tired of trying to earn love from people who only gave it when I made them look good. He didn't speak for a moment. Then he said, You never had to earn anything. They were the ones who failed you. That hit something deep. We made our way to the back patio. The sun had dipped low now, casting a golden, fading light across the edge of the yard. The pole I'd been tied to was still there, silent, unassuming, like it hadn't been the scene of public humiliation just hours earlier. Nathaniel walked over, untied what remained of the rope, coiled it slowly, and tossed it into a trash bin without a word. You could sell this house, he said after a while. We could go anywhere.
Paris.
Seattle. Buy land in Vermont and build something from scratch. I laughed softly. You know, I hate snow. He grinned. Then scratch Vermont. I sat down on the patio bench, letting the last warm light hit my skin. For the first time in, God, maybe years, I wasn't bracing for an insult. I wasn't waiting for someone to accuse me of being too emotional, too weak, too dramatic. You remember when we met? I asked. Of course, he said. You were working 2 jobs, finishing night school, and still managing to pack your mother's pills and file your dad's taxes. And you were living in a 1-bedroom apartment above a bookstore, trying to code a startup no one believed in. He smiled. You were the only one who did. I looked at him, eyes softening. I didn't see a billionaire when I met you. I saw someone kind. Someone with fire in his bones. And I saw someone with a heart bigger than the house she was trapped in. That silence came again, but this time, it was beautiful. We sat like that for a while, no need to fill the air with anything. No need to run, explain, apologize, or pretend. Just free. Eventually, I leaned my head on his shoulder and whispered something I hadn't dared say in years. I want to start over. I want a life that feels like mine. He turned his head slightly. Say the word, and we'll build it. From the ground up. No more chains. No more proving anything to anyone. And just like that, the house that had once felt like a prison now felt like a beginning. It's strange how peace doesn't come with fireworks. There's no dramatic music, no slow-motion montage, no one clapping when you finally rise from the ashes. Sometimes, peace just slips in quietly, when you're too tired to fight anymore, when the storm clears not with a bang, but with a stillness you didn't know how much you needed. That night, after everyone had left and the last sliver of sun had faded behind the trees, Nathaniel and I sat on the floor of the living room, our backs against the couch, the lights still off, the air filled with the quiet hum of nighttime. We didn't need to speak anymore. He held my hand, gently tracing the places where the rope had left red marks, as if memorizing the pain I had endured just so he could help me heal it. I glanced around the room. The fancy family portraits were still hanging, those perfectly posed, smiling lies. I walked over, took one down from the wall, and turned it over in my hands. "Keep it," Nathaniel asked from behind me. I looked at it for a second longer, then gently placed it face down on the table.
No.
That's not who I am anymore. Because the truth is, I'd spent so much of my life trying to fit into a frame someone else built. Playing the good daughter, the quiet sister, the dependable backup plan. They called me dramatic when I spoke up, selfish when I said no, and invisible when I achieved something without their permission.
But now?
I didn't need their approval. Not anymore. The next morning, I woke up in my own bed with the windows open and the fresh scent of rain-soaked grass drifting in. The house felt different, lighter somehow, like it had been holding its breath for years and finally exhaled. Nathaniel had already brewed coffee. He handed me a cup like it was second nature, and for the first time in so long, I didn't feel like I was waking up in enemy territory. I felt home. We spent the next week clearing the place out. I didn't cry once as I boxed up my parents' things. There was no sadness left, only clarity. I was done carrying the weight of people who never carried me. We found my old notebooks in the attic, the ones I used to scribble dreams into when I thought no one would ever listen. I laughed when I opened one and saw a list titled, "Things I'll Do When I'm Free." Nathaniel read it over my shoulder and grinned. "You really wrote, 'Learn to paint a sunset'?" I shrugged. I didn't say they were big dreams. Just mine. He kissed the top of my head. "Then let's go buy you some paints." And we did. We turned the old study into a sunlit art room. He built shelves. I filled them with brushes and messy canvases and colors I hadn't let myself touch in years. I'd forgotten how good it felt to make something without rules. We started having dinners at the long oak table, the one that used to be filled with cold glances and biting remarks. Now it held candles, fresh bread, and conversations that didn't leave bruises. One night, Nathaniel brought home a key and placed it in my hand. "I bought a cabin up north," he said. "Lakeview. No neighbors. Just trees, stars, and us. A place for you to breathe when this house feels too heavy." I stared at the key for a long time. "You're not trying to run away from this, are you?" I asked. "No," he said softly. "I just want you to know that from now on you have choices, not chains." And that was when I realized my life was finally mine. Not a performance. Not an apology. Not a contract signed with guilt. Mine. A few months later, I got an invitation in the mail. A cousin's engagement party. My name was spelled wrong, the envelope addressed to Emma and guessed if any. Nathaniel saw the letter. Raised a brow. "You want to go?" I smiled.
No.
"But I want to send them something." He chuckled. "Oh no. What are you thinking?" I walked over to the desk, pulled out one of my old photos, the one where I stood beside Nathaniel at a tech conference, smiling as he accepted a Global Innovation Award. I signed the back. "From the useless child. Thank you for setting me free." Then I tucked it into the envelope and sealed it. No hate. No revenge. Just truth.
And peace.
Now, when I wake up in the mornings, I don't dread the day. I water my plants. I paint sunsets. I walk barefoot on the back porch with a coffee mug in my hand and Nathaniel humming some off-key song while he makes eggs in the kitchen. We laugh a lot. Not because life is perfect, but because it's finally real. I don't know where the road leads next. I don't need to. All I know is that the girl who once stood tied to a pole in the middle of a cruel party,
she's gone.
In her place stands a woman who finally found her voice, and a love that never asked her to shrink. And if I could go back in time, I'd whisper to that broken girl, bruised wrists and trembling heart, "Hold on.
You're not done yet.
Your best chapter hasn't even begun."